Time for episode 5 of Have You Seen? Joseph Conroy's with us. Joseph, good morning to you.
Morning, guys. How you getting on?
Very good, very good. What have you got for us this week?
This week we have Where Dreams Go to Die, Gary Robbins and the Barkley Marathons. In the grand tradition of the Have You Seen slot, the first thing I asked you guys earlier in this week was, have you seen this? I know neither of you have. Then the follow-up question was, have you heard of the Barkley Marathons? And neither of you had come across it before. So I might just run you through the setup of the race before we get into the details of this documentary. This is sort of on the theme. I saw you, Jer, on Twitter the other day saying that you were had taken to mentally preparing yourself for a tie by having a few glasses of wine and going on TikTok, looking at some fitness and some clean eating videos.
Pretty much, yeah. That is my life now. Yeah.
This is kind of an extension of that. So if you want to just flatline, this one's for you. So this race, the Barkley Marathons, this is Barkley in Tennessee, not kind of nice, friendly Berkeley, California. And the race originally came about in the 80s because there's this high security jail in this kind of remote mountain location. And James Earl Ray, who was the man convicted for assassinating Martin Luther King, was in this jail. And he staged this dramatic jailbreak. So there's this massive manhunt, biggest manhunt to date in Tennessee history. They end up finding him 55 hours later, 8 miles from the compound. So you've got this eccentric runner, Gary Robbins, who kind of runs all these sort of crazy trails around Tennessee. He hears this news and he goes, that's a bit mad, 55 hours and only 8 miles. I bet you we could run 100 miles in 50 hours up there. So that's the original genesis of the race. He sets this crazy challenge. He's this kind of eccentric puppet master at the middle of all this. He was setting the course. The course changes slightly every year. It's kind of based on this kind of orientation involved here as well. So it's 5 loops of a 20-mile course set by him that you need to complete in 60 hours. So 100 miles, 60 hours. That's the official length of the course. The actual course is estimated to be close to 130 miles. And along the way, there's no aid stations. You've got a field of only 35 to 40. And there's also, the course is kind of given to you orienteering style in kind of a slightly idiosyncratic description of where you're meant to be going. And then as you're going around, you're 5 laps, 20 miles in the wilderness, going through brambles, covering elevation that's 2 times the height of Mount Everest. The checkpoints are books, and your race number, so say if you're Jar Gilroy, number 16, at each checkpoint you need to take the book placed there, rip out page 16, put it in your little pouch and keep shuffling on. So that's the setup here. Pique your interest? Yes, no?
Yeah, absolutely. Like the documentary does.
It sounds bizarre.
Yeah, and just kind of put it in context, since 1986, they've had 15 finishers of the 100-mile challenge. So
no one finishes.
These are basically...
Most years, nobody wins.
Yeah, I think like the finish race is something like 0.2. And
right.
If the finish, because the course changes slightly every year, if there's kind of an aberration and 3 or 4 people finish, the next year you get a backlash from that and you get kind of 5% more difficulty added to the course. But it's really interesting. So that's kind of your setup. Just for this kind of specific documentary called Where Dreams Go to Die, Gary Robbins and the Barkley Marathons. It's this guy, Gary Robbins, who's an elite ultra runner, as all these guys are, taking on the challenge. So it kind of follows his journey trying to conquer the course, which kind of, not to over egg it, but I describe it as a bit of a mix between Moby Dick and Apocalypse Now. So we have a little bit of audio of Gary here that we might just play, and then I'll talk you through the actual documentary.
I tried to get back at things pretty quickly. I had nothing. I had an inability to sustain stress levels. I couldn't train. I couldn't physically do anything. I couldn't go up steep terrain without getting lightheaded, without having to sit down. I was kind of a shell of myself for 6 months. Just wiped my calendar, wasn't running, wasn't training, was just trying to stay on top of work.
As soon as he said it, I was like, okay, we'll go, no problem. And it was never an issue. I knew that he needed to get it done. I know that he needs to get it done, and I'm gonna support him in that as many years as it takes.
It's Thursday, March 9th.
It's interesting. This morning, Linda said to Reed before I left that Daddy was going to war today. Could not be more accurate. Every single day is just a battle. It's a war between my ears to get out here and do the same thing over and over again.
People are mad, aren't they? Like,
People are mad.
demonstrably, objectively, just a bit crazy.
And this captures that really well, because if we watch kind of sport to try and find these kind of moments of sort of like elevated drama or like raw human endeavor, this is what you're getting here in spades. But the format of it's really interesting because we've kind of gone through the fact this is a bit of a kind of quirky setup in general. So media, any kind of media, any type of support team, any type of kind of spectators, as much as you can have spectators, are only allowed in the compound where the race starts, where the loops end, where racers pass through. So you're only allowed there, and one kind of viewing spot. There's kind of one elevated spot you can go to where kind of it's like if you go to watch a cross-country race and you see the people pass by you once. That's basically all you're getting here. And you're also getting an average of people being out in the field for, like, best case scenario, a loop is 8 to 9 hours. So the format is, you heard a bit of Linda, his wife there. It's Linda, their small kid, and a few kind of team members who are sort of supporting him at base camp. You've got Gary going out into the wilderness, coming back each loop, every runner with like the colour drained from their face, probably literally, like they say, kind of shock and yes, it's basically shock and sort of just the physical shock your body's taken, the mental shock. There's also the mental challenge of even that whole thing of collecting the books. You have people going out, getting disorientated, not being able to find the books. I think the record is one person being out for 33 hours on one loop and having covered actually 4 miles of the race.
All right, to explain the original origins of the story, you get a bit lost up there. Are there bears in the mountains?
They never
wildcats?
mention any bears. There's a lot of thistles, and like every single person who comes back after a lap is coming back with their calves and their legs just shredded to pieces. That's kind of part of the challenge here. It's all rough terrain, it's all off-road. There's a lot of ascents and descents as well, so you get people coming back as well with like bloodied heads. There's a road called Quitters Road, which is Quitters Road, which is kind of like the trail. It's like the sort of North Star trail if you find yourself in trouble. But it's just crazy, and it starts off quite kind of, okay, here's all these people out in the woods running around. You've kind of got limited access, but just limited access to what you can see because you're kind of confined to the base camp. But it's just this amazing drama. And like Linda's wife, who's an ultra runner in her own right, who's kind of done races up to 120 miles, but like more conventional racing. You can kind of see the toll it's taken on her as this goes on as well. And we kind of heard that clip there, which was in between races.
The bit where she realises she's married a madman. That takes its toll, does it?
Like, it does, yeah.
Can I ask, Joe, like, is there a commonality here in terms of why these people are doing it? Because there are other options in terms of proving your physical prowess and, you know, that you're better than the rest of us. That will be easier than this. But why are they all going for this?
The concept of it is that it's meant to be, his whole concept of it is trying to test the limits of human endeavor and endurance, the founder of the race. So that's kind of, that seems to be, it seems to be literally this kind of Moby Dick kind of pursuit element of it. But it's interesting as well because the field is limited to 35 or 40. There's quite a convoluted, you need to kind of find out how to enter, which apparently is quite hard information to attain. Then once you've done that, part of the process is writing a letter to Gary, the race founder, stating your case for why you want to race. But then you have these kind of weird quirks over the years, like a bunch of kind of Russian runners will show up one year, or to be like, everyone kind of have, they're just kind of these slightly, like, there's no way to put it, like, you have to be kind of crazy to do it, and that's captured really well here. And like the comparison to something like Apocalypse Now is kind of, it all starts off quite kind of sanitized and civilized, and then it's just this descent into madness. And then also you've got that kind of aspect of in between races, like you had that in that clip, Gary talking about kind of not being able to sort of physically really take on any this is a ultra runner not able to take on any physical challenge for 6 months after it's like, kind of reminds me of sort of, you hear that about boxing matches. It's like, oh, they both left a bit of themselves in that ring that night, or kind of we talk about fights and people never be the same again.
Yeah.
You're kind of tapping into that nerve. But just on this, this just insane scale. And not to give any spoilers, I'd highly recommend not watching the trailer for this before watching it. Also, just...
It's a good tip for life in general, I think.
It is, actually, yeah.
100%, especially here. And just kind of on a quick bit of housekeeping, this is 100% free on YouTube. There are a few other Barkley Martins documentaries, but like there's a bigger one called The Race That Eats Its Young, which was on Netflix. But that kind of gets a bit more caught up in kind of the quirkiness of the event and kind of the characters, where this tells that side of the story really well, then just gives you this kind of incredibly raw, like hands off. And the documentarian is a friend of his, so it's a very at ease, very like just a very raw look at.
So you're recommending
extraordinary challenge. 100%. And just the last thing is the running time is 75 minutes. So
yeah, that's just on the outer fringe of what I can do these days.
Exactly. It's a nice sweetener, but yeah, highly recommend it.
And it's on Netflix?
It's not on Netflix, it's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube, okay.
Yeah, so I think it had a limited kind of, was screened here and there. It's very much kind of an independent film. Ethan Newbury is the documentarian. He has a YouTube channel called The Ginger Runner, which is also a very good running channel in general. But yeah, that's up on YouTube. No messing. And in my opinion, crazy story in general on the race, crazy story from Gary, and incredibly well told in this really succinct and well put together documentary.
It's called Where Dreams Go to Die, and you can get it on YouTube. Very quickly, you pointed this out and I kind of hadn't really even noticed it, but sport is coming to an end for like a little period of time in terms of the all day, every single night of the week, something mad on. It's going to be confined to GA at weekends for at least 3 weeks.
Yeah, the URC have kind of found a nice bit of real estate for the next month, where we're all going to be engrossed in them playing off after the Champions Cup final. But apart from that, the key real estate you're getting back here is your midweek. So it's not going to be your Spurs versus Watford on a Wednesday night. You might be just interested enough to sit down and watch it and kind of be bypassing other things you could be doing with your life. There's also kind of a bit of a nice kind of correlation here, where we have the football and everything taking a bit of a breath, and also we have a lot of projects that were delayed because of COVID coming on stream now. So you've got your Ozarks back, Better Call Saul, and then it's interesting. I was actually catching up on Better Call Saul. I hadn't realized they were doing the mid-season break thing. I'm not sure if we talked this before. Where do we stand on week to week?
We're a spoiler-free zone here, by the way, just to let everybody know, because I muted all the words associated with Ozark while I was catching up with it on Twitter. It's the only way to, like, I did the same with Derry Girls, because after the Liam Neeson thing, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, what's the point? What? So you just have to, it's the only way, if you're using social media, you've got to mute all the words associated with the show.
Yeah, it's good kind of like gateway drug to just getting off social media in general, actually, just by watching like the first episode of any TV show. It feels like we're back in like 2020 again, like Better Call Saul, Ozark, like a new Sally Rooney adaptation as well. It's like we're just doing this all over again. This is early pandemic stuff where football is stopped, and actually being able to watch stuff that isn't Premier League football is...
I feel a little bit calmer about life generally now, though. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, maybe. No banana bread.
Wouldn't rule that out.
Yeah, just bring that back, and then we are back. I was not aware of mid-season break in Better Call Saul, Joe. I think it's a disgrace. I think that everything should just be put in one, and there needed to be a flashing warning at the start of every episode, being like, don't watch this unless you're prepared to get hurt and frustrated in the middle of the summer, because there's nothing until July the 11th, and I can't wait that long, to be quite honest. I finished the first part of the season last night, and I was like, oh well, that's the one inkling of hope here, is that we only have to wait until next week. But no, we have to wait until the start of July, which is disgraceful.
I didn't realise this either, Joseph, but Stranger Things goes live on Friday, and it is broken up as well.
Yeah, like it's kind of feeds into the conversation we're having there a second ago about kind of having to mute. I'm the same boat, having to mute shows. Like there was probably a year where I knew I would watch Top Boy, but I wasn't watching Top Boy, and you see Top Boy popping up everywhere, and straight away it's like, nah, scroll or mute. Like we are all living in these kind of like animated content experiences. But Stranger Things is an interesting one because it's back on Friday for the first half of the final series, with average episode lengths of around, I think, an hour 15. Then they're taking a break for about a month, coming back with the final 2 episodes, which I think are about an hour 15. Then the final episode is 2.5 hours.
So, I kind of last season of Stranger Things, I was like, I'm not sure I'm coming back to this.
Yeah, I have never watched it actually. To be honest, need to get on it. But just this is a time where we need to remind people that myself, Jerry, and Joe did do a Better Call Saul player ratings at the start of the pandemic, complimented by none other than Rhea Seahorn, who tweeted us very simple thanks, because we spoke nice things about our characters. So we know what we're talking about, just in case you're wondering.
We're experts.
Experts, yeah.
Yeah. And finally, you want to give something a quick mention, Joseph?
Sorry, yeah, Unusual Suspects, the podcast over on Go Loud. Have you guys heard this yet?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. I know it's kind of been heralded, but also these things are such a kind of slow drip feed, and it just came back to me the other day. I was just thinking about it. I saw it kind of pop up, someone who had just discovered it tweeting about it, and I was like, it kind of just triggered again in my head, thinking back, wow, I listened to that very quickly, but what an incredible series that was.
Yeah, it's definitely worth digging out if you haven't heard it. It tells the story of the Brinks robbery in upstate New York and the millions and millions and millions that disappeared into the ether, and where did they go? And it has some incredible characters in it. So, yeah, good stuff, Joseph. Thanks a million. That's this week's episode of Have You Seen? More at the same time next week.